Welcome to Hashtag General, everyone. I'm Logan Studley, and joining me, as always, is my fellow host, Chris Akamura. How's it going, Chris? I think
As
that's a
good as
great
it
statement.
can be.
Basically how I feel. To just kind of dive into the big issue of the week. Yeah, I don't know exactly. I know I could go on a very, very long rant about everything that happened in the universe Wednesday, but I don't want to dwell too long on it. But I know you and I both kind of wanted to at least touch on it because, yeah, it's as more and more news broke and more details emerged, more and more video emerged, more and more photos emerged. It was very clear that there was a insurrection at the United States Capitol where I think the most emblematic aspect of that day is the fact that the flag that was flown by the armies of a group of seditionists in the 1800s that never ever breached the borders of the District of Columbia was flown through the halls of the Capitol building on Wednesday. And
Yeah.
that's
Also,
basically, yeah.
also the first time that flag has ever been brought into the Capitol building.
Yeah. And also the
Um,
first time that the Capitol building has been taken by a force of any type through acts of violence since 1814, when the British also burned down the White House during the War of 1812. If you look at photos and videos, it's very clear that there were groups of people who were in that building with the intent to, at minimum, take hostages, and that's probably the hopeful outcome of what they would have done if they had succeeded on Wednesday to find
yeah,
any members of Congress. That's like the best case scenario is that they wanted hostages.
yeah. Uh, Pretty terrifying. Um, and yeah, I think just overall, it's just yeah. There's not much to say other than like there's no good coming out of that situation.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Like it could have been a lot worse. And like I don't want to say that in like a yay, it's not that
right.
bad. But like
It was
also,
still that bad, but it was, instead of having a complete catastrophe, we just had, it's we had like, it's bad. There's no silver lining to this.
yeah,
Like, any silver lining you find was from other events from that day, not from the actions that happened there specifically.
right. And the thing is too, is like I don't want like it's something I was talking to my dad about it. Like it's not at this point it's not like Trump supporters or Republicans or anything. Like at this point, you're just an asshole.
Yeah,
Like you're
it's
just an asshole.
I
Because there's
think
a
that's
lot I think there's a lot of even Trump supporters that were like, yo guys, this is too far.
yeah, it's one of those cases where, like, if you looked at how these extremist groups had been operating, it's not surprising that they would have the audacity to plan and try something like this. I think where a lot of people were shocked was the fact that there was almost like nothing stopping them from, like, following through.
Right.
Like, it was almost like where you would have expected a flood wall, you were given like a twig and some dirt and told, have fun, hold back the flood. Um, and there's a lot to unpack there. There's a reason why Business Insider ran a piece where, like, officials who deal with security in Europe in similar situations were basically like, this is a coup. And we have to tell our government that this is a coup attempted by President Donald Trump against his own government. And that's, I think, kind of terrifying is when they explained that someone somewhere took deliberate action to ensure that this had the best chance for success,
Right.
because the Maryland National Guard was prohibited from entering. They asked multiple times if they could enter the District of Columbia and were told multiple times no.
Right.
It took basically, like, you can hear stories from the governors of both Virginia and Maryland where they would have people like representatives from Congress or senators calling them on their cell phones going, "Why aren't you sending help?" And them trying to do what they can, but the way the law works, like, they required, in essence, either to be asked or permission, and those just, they weren't coming. And it isn't because whoever was supposed to ask or give permission was in the Capitol and unable to be reached. It was someone who was either at the Pentagon or the White House.
Hmm.
So there's no way in hell that you or I are going to be able to do justice to everything that happened that day in the format of our show.
Right.
But
Which
I
is why
think,
I think like when you brought it up, I was like, we can talk about it a little bit. I mean,
yeah,
like there's nothing. It I feel like us bringing it up and us talking about it here is like kind of beating a dead horse because it's something that like has kind of been all over the place and
yeah, there's other people who will have more details, better explanations than we will in
right.
our
So something
podcast, where the show notes are literally bullet points and not like,
right. I think the most poignant thing that I can say is like right before this, the reason I was a little late was Arnold Schwarzenegger just put out
yes, I saw
great
that.
this great 7 minute video, and again it again kind of to my point of like it goes beyond Republican Democrat thing and beyond like a Trump supporter thing. Arnold's a Republican,
Yeah,
and he's you know now granted Arnold has been someone that has really been kind of an ally to both sides. Like he likes democracy, and I think he sides one way, but I think
I think
he's very
the rare Republican who is socially liberal but fiscally conservative.
right, and so he just has he kind of toes the line in terms of his beliefs, and so like and very much the way kind of I do, where I don't think anyone, or very rarely, I think most people are pretty like in between on a lot of issues. Where it's like, yeah, I don't agree with either side here. Like, is there middle ground that we can find? And they're like, no. um, but yeah, like the message he put out was great, and it's something that I couldn't agree more with, and it's something that's pretty inspiring. And I would encourage everyone to go listen to Arnold speak for 7 minutes about his experience in Austria and failed governments and things like
Yeah,
that. Um, but yeah, I don't know if you guys chance to watch that, Logan, but
I did. I
it's
watched it this morning, and I think I retweeted it. I know I liked it at least. But yeah, it was. I think the fact that we're getting that it was a message from someone who's a respected among who's like a known Republican who is respected by people regardless of his political affiliation, making a
and
statement of
also
like, where he's like, look, I know what this is like because I lived through the aftermath of what happens when things go wrong after an event like
mhm,
this.
right,
Which I think, given the fact that he was still able to be like, I lived through the aftermath of something like this, but we can still have hope, is, I think a very important and poignant message right now.
right, and also again, I know people make fun of that we had Arnold Schwarzenegger as a governor, and yes, it sounds hilarious, but Arnold's actually a really good governor.
Yeah,
uh,
it's
and I think it goes back to the thing of yeah, he had his cabinet when he was governor. He had a lot of people from both sides that were working together in a way that he was able to sort of do what's best for the the state, regardless of political kind of affiliation or
Ambition.
um, ambition. So, super important. Um, and yeah, like I think people need to understand that someone brought up a point I saw earlier that like we need to stop electing celebrities to public office. And I'm like, dude, the majority of people that get in that are celebrities, well, maybe not the majority, but like some of them do a great job.
Yeah, for every Ronald Reagan, you have an Al Franken and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, isn't it like Sonny Bono too was like a congressman or something? It's like there are people who like they may have been a celebrity and then like pivoted into politics, but there are like there's people can be politically motivated and have that not be their career until at some point they go, you know what? No, I'm tired of being on the sideline.
Right. So
Um,
again, I think in general here, my big takeaway is like the people that storm the Capitol building are just assholes. They don't represent any larger group of people. Well, okay, they do, but I don't like there's a there's a point where you go where even people that supported them or encouraged them or whatever say, yeah, this is too far. And yes, they should still be held accountable for encouraging this behavior and for kind of riling them up or starting or whatever. But there's a point where these people stand alone of just like assholes and people that need to be punished. And it makes me very happy to see posts of the pictures taken that day alongside mugshots.
It's
And it's
great to see those. And one thing I find, first off, the internet, when it becomes a mob, it can become very dangerous. If you start brigading stuff like this, there have been multiple instances of where the wrong people have been identified, but the internet seeks vengeance. This has
sure,
been one of those instances where a lot of the people doing the work to identify are like journalists or people who actually have experience or a background in doing that sort of work, to where they're actually truly identifying and verifying, because instead of people going out and going, it's this person, brigade them, people are taking photos. They're finding out photos of, like, I think one of the best examples is of the guy who had the zip tie cuffs and the
yeah,
face masks, where someone on Twitter was basically able to identify the brand and type of shirt, brand and type of pant. Like, basically, they were able to identify the clothing, and then from there, they're able to find photos of a man who fit the height and description and clothing of the person pictured there that had been taken at other points during the day. And from that, they were able to successfully identify that man. And it's
hmm
just like, the power of our phones is these people were documenting their great triumph, and is being turned around into a tool to find and identify these people and bring them to justice. And it's kind
right.
of just like, yeah.
So so to bring a little levity to this conversation, and something that I was wondering about because it's a pretty common tactic, and I don't think it works, and I don't understand the thought process here. When people go to these things with beards and mustaches and then right afterwards shave because they think it helps hide their identity, I don't think that functions, and I think it's stupid to think it does.
I think what it is if you like say, like, I had let my beard grow out over the winter holiday just because I was just like, I'm not on Zoom calls or anything, even though I never
Right.
use Zoom. Like, I don't need to worry about trimming the beard, and I finally did it yesterday. But if I had shaved it off, shaved my hair, like if I had gone that, it isn't that it's going to stop someone from identifying me in one of the photos and then someone else being like, hey, you're that guy. But it might stop people who might have seen my picture and might see me in passing. So it might not delay like law enforcement from tracking me down, but it delays the public from tracking them down. I think that's their thing. Is it isn't that they can all of a sudden disappear into the wild. It's where the problem is like all of them they went home and shaved. Whereas if they had not gone home and shaved, it might have actually given them a couple more weeks of, freedom. But
Sure.
then again, intelligence isn't necessarily one of the traits I'd ascribe to, you know.
No, absolutely not.
Like if we were creating D&D character sheets to bring this back into our geeky realm, I would probably be giving them like a 8 or a 9 on intelligence or wisdom.
Hey man, but they would have pretty high initiative. They take
Uh,
risks.
yeah, high initiative. But yeah, it's and what's also interesting is seeing how social media is all of a sudden like going, wait, we actually can have a negative impact on the world and actually, taking action against people who are calling for essentially this to happen again on the 20th during the inauguration or trying to
Yeah,
downplay what happened. And I hate to break it to those people, but your First Amendment rights aren't being violated. In fact, if anything, the fact you've been able to tweet on Twitter for so long has been the fact that Twitter is legally not held responsible for your language because of Section
right.
230. So the thing you want to overturn so badly is actually the only reason you've been able to talk and say such horrific things for so long. And they're just done with it. So bye bye.
Yeah.
Have fun at
Um,
Parlor. Oh wait, that got shut down. Oh,
so yeah, I think in general, uh, we're still seeing some very dangerous things being said by some senators and some
mm-hmm.
other things. And so like job not completely done. Uh, I think continue to hold elected officials responsible for their actions is an important thing. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I think I saw this on Twitter right before we started, where someone made a comment where calling for healing and unity ignores the fact that when you take a wound, you still have to clean it.
yeah,
So if we got to clean the wound, that is going to involve some elected officials facing legal repercussions.
right,
The your seat in the House or the Senate or even the White House is one you hold within the bounds of the law. You are not above it.
hmm
So don't think it's a level of protection because you should not be afforded it when you know commit sedition. So
treason.
yeah, sedition is for losers, yo. So let's move on from that to our normal general topic. What have you been watching and playing? Basically, what did you do for the 3 weeks we were off?
Uh,
By the way,
well,
spoiler, I have not played any more of Cyberpunk.
what? What? We had
I
three
play
weeks, Logan.
I played Jedi Fallen Order.
Okay, you beat it?
No, I haven't beat it yet, but I've been making my way through Jedi Fallen Order. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do Jedi Fallen Order first, and then I'll do Cyberpunk. I
Okay,
decided
well,
to prioritize.
fair. So yeah, we'll skip that thing because I beat Cyberpunk twice. Uh,
Nice.
um, to be completely honest, once you beat it once and you have the basic framework of the story and you understand what to do, beating the main quest only takes about 6, 7 hours.
Interesting. Okay, good to know.
Um, yeah. So, but again, I beat it second time with with the story in mind and with the character in mind I wanted to build, and so I knew which side quests to do I knew which characters to focus and then talk to, and like the skills I needed, and like the gun that I needed
Cool.
to
Yeah,
build the
that's
character I wanted to.
one of the reasons why I was like, you know what, I'm gonna pause and do Cyberpunk again later. Is I forget where I first read this, but it is something I find actually have started to do, especially on games that I actually want to sit back and enjoy. And it's the concept of playing, and this is something most people can't do, and I really don't have the time to do it, but I honestly, I think a lot of it is because I'll sit down, I'll play a game, and then I won't touch it for a couple of weeks, either because of lack of time or just lack of interest, or something else takes, grabs my attention. But the idea of playing a game for 10 hours, getting like into the campaign like a little bit, but then going back and restarting, and the reason for that being you have a better idea of how the game is supposed to function, how the mechanics work. So anything you may have missed in the beginning, because you were still trying to figure out how to play the game, you can actually enjoy as someone who knows how to play the game. And then that might actually set you up for like a better run through because you're not making silly mistakes or getting rid of something that you didn't realize you actually needed later on.
Right. Well, I would push back on that just to say like I wouldn't start a lit like an hour of it and then restart it because I think that like your first time experiencing something and like yeah, you might get rid of something you needed, but like that's part of your experience and
Yeah,
that's part of like so I would say like going through it once and then going through it a second time. Like the way that Cyberpunk is built, I would say is made for multiple playthroughs in the same way like Mass Effect is, right? The choices you make, the character you're building, like it wildly changes depending on how you're building and how you're going. Like just for example, the first character I built was Han Solo. So I
yeah. I
built
actually was wondering about that because I know we talked about how you were going to do the street kid who was all in cool, and that was it. How did that go?
yeah, so I maxed out cool and then I maxed out reflexes, which is the handguns and pistols and stuff. And then that's all I did. I did that and I was able to talk my way out of most situations. And then, I was able to diffuse and charm and like kind of talk my way out of all these things. And if not, then I had a sidearm that I was quick to go to. Um, and yeah, it was great. Uh, it I had a ton of fun with it. And the second time, I made someone that was more tech based and more stealth and tech based, and that's also fun. So completely different. And I ran into a lot of situations that I didn't even run into before because I couldn't charm my way out of a situation. And I got stuck um, somewhere where I shouldn't have been, and you're like, great, what do I do now?
Yeah.
But yeah, the it's great.
Um, Great. Yeah. No, I'm looking. It wasn't that I didn't want to play Cyberpunk. It was just more of a. I realized I'm like I've been sitting on Jedi Fallen Order for a year, and I'm just like I kept having, for some odd reason, in the past couple of months, I had multiple people go like, "Why haven't you beaten that game yet?" Where they were just like I think in some cases like our friend Jeff, I think he wanted to talk to me about like some of the story points, and I just like couldn't talk about it because I'm like I haven't played the game yet, and he's like, "Oh well, I don't want to spoil it." I'm like, okay, I need to just sit down and play. It's like the one aspect of Star Wars since like the recanonization like launch of 2015 that I actually haven't beaten or read or played through is Jedi Fallen Order, and I'm just like, okay, I just need to get it done. And so I've been making my way through that. I want to say I I don't know how far along I am into the main campaign because I know you can always keep going back to other planets.
Yeah. Um,
But
there's a story point that I know of that I can remember that sticks out in my head of like, oh, this is the point where I was like, I don't care about anything else. Let me just get through the story. Um,
okay,
so I don't know if you've hit that point yet.
I
But
don't think so. Um,
yeah, 'cause I remember playing and being like, Oh, this is the direction we're going? Oh my God. Okay. Let me just power through this story.
Yeah, I don't think I fit that point yet, but I feel like it's getting. I feel like I'm getting close to like a big moment.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I'm currently on Kashyyyk, and the only reason I stopped playing the other day was I've been playing a lot of Fortnite with friends. And I got a text message going, "Hey, do you want to jump on Fortnite?" And I was like, "You know what? Sure." But yeah, so that's been what I've been up to a lot. Uh,
Oh, I also
but
finished Cobra Kai last night.
how is that? I haven't watched any of Cobra Kai because it was
Oh
always
my
on
God,
YouTube.
really?
Well, it was on YouTube Premium initially, and I just was not going to pay for YouTube Premium. I also only ever saw, I think, the first Karate Kid, so I don't have like a long time ago, so I don't have like this intimate knowledge or like connection to that story. So Cobra Kai was one of those
So,
things that I've been interested in watching, but not interested enough to like actually seek out.
so I will say this. Cobra Kai seasons one and two, you pretty much only need the first film to really understand and respect. And they do a great job with flashbacks. So even if you don't remember what happened, they like do flashbacks of the moment or whatever that it's referencing. So, then you go, oh yeah, that happened. Or like when they bring in characters, they flash back and they're like, oh, okay, this is why he feels this way. They do a fantastic job of that, and it's the kind of thing of, to me, it's the greatest example of fandom in any kind of media right now. Like the way that we talk about Mandalorian and like its legacy to Star Wars, and like you can tell it was made by fans. Cobra
Same thing with
Kai
Cobra
is
Kai.
Cobra Kai is that to the next level, and it
Okay.
is so much of like these people love Karate Kid and they love the universe and they love these characters and they treat them with so much respect and they treat them with so much like just wonderful writing and some comedic elements and just it's fantastic. Like the people that made it, right?
Um, I know once you tell me, I'll remember. Like it's one of those, I've read about the making of Cobra Kai a bit because it keeps getting talked about, but I don't remember who's behind it.
So the main creator or the main creators are the guys that wrote Harold and Kumar.
Mm.
And like American Reunion and like all these kind of fantastic comedies. Um, so there's just a thing where you can tell that they grew up watching Karate Kid a bajillion times and just ask themselves like,
What would
what would
happen?
happen? Like, yeah, what is the point of this story? And from episode to episode, you really get to the point where you're saying to yourself like, oh, I enjoyed this character. Or like this character is the hero of the story, or this character is the good guy. It's it's about this character. It's about this guy. Whereas, so you've seen the original Karate Kid, right?
Yeah, I know that the main
So,
protagonist I follow is the villain or the
well,
guy
yeah.
he
So
has
like
to. Yeah.
the original Karate Kid is very clearly like Daniel and Miyagi are good,
Mm-hmm.
and Johnny and Cobra Kai are bad. That's like the now with Cobra Kai, it gets in like a very good gray area where it's like, yeah, humans have issues, and like there's reasons for issues, and there's reasons for like why people act the way they act, and like doesn't mean they're bad or they're good, or there's they don't feel bad about it or whatever. Like there's different reasons,
Yeah.
and so like it really gets into that, and yeah, for sometimes yeah, you're like, oh, Johnny's an asshole, or sometimes you're like, you know what, Johnny's not that bad a guy. And sometimes you're like, Daniel's an asshole. Okay, maybe Daniel is the guy that we thought he was, or okay, now I get why Daniel's doing this, or stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great. And the thing is, they do so great so when they bring in a character, it is the original actor,
Yeah,
and
I
they've made sure of that. So like there's little characters and little side characters and people in the background and just kind of like, yeah, the guy at the bar is still the same actor from 30 years ago. And it's
yeah,
like, what?
it's something I've seen when Cobra Kai comes up and is talked about. It is the fact that when most and it's usually being praised by people when I read about it in the sense that they're like this could have easily have become like this absolute garbage money like run for money based off nostalgia, but it is way better than it ought to be. Whenever anyone talks about Cobra Kai, it's always with that level of this show should not work, but it is, and it's working better than you would think.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so one of the main points I wanted to bring up. So yeah, Cobra Kai season 1 and 2, you only pretty much need Karate Kid 1 as like your primer. Um, Cobra Kai season 3, so this season is really where they start opening the floodgates of like the greater Karate Kid universe, if I could say that,
The
where
Karate Kid
like
cinematic universe,
right where characters from Karate Kid,
KKCU.
well, like where characters were from Karate Kid 2 really play a big role or a bigger role. There's about 2 to 3 episodes where like yes, karate you need Karate Kid 2 as a primer, and yeah, they do the flashback things, but you don't get the full gravitas of the situation uh, until you go to that point and you get there. And then at the end, there's a huge cliffhanger of this end of the season that brings in a character from Karate Kid 3. Um, and so yeah, that's sort of the main point. The creators have said they consider Karate Kid canon to be the 4 films that Pat Morita was in. So it's Karate Kids 1 through 3, and then the next Karate Kid. To which they have said they've contacted Hilary Swank's people many a times, and they haven't said no. Was their response? um,
I hate to the thing is they say that, but they also know like the Hollywood no is sometimes silence. Um,
yeah. So, but I mean, the thing is that's great is now that it's on Netflix, it is getting the budget it deserves for something like
right.
this,
It
and
got
then
went
also the praise it deserves because I think people are starting to like you now that all 3 seasons are on Netflix, they
that's
are
the thing
getting
too is like where I've sat down and because I've legit in the past like few times it's come up on Netflix, I'm like I should sit down and watch it. Is whereas when it had been behind the YouTube paywall, I kept hearing about how great it was, but I was just like, I'm not spending $10 a month for one
right.
show on YouTube. Like it just was like
I mean, I as a long time YouTube Red and YouTube Premium subscriber, the no ads is so nice.
it's that has honestly recently, especially since I'm spending more time at home, which means I'm actually spending more time watching YouTube, because I'm spending less time on a bus.
Yeah,
That the no ads is definitely something that I keep considering because I'm becoming increasingly tired of them. But one thing I would say too that YouTube has spoiled me on is I've been rewatching just in the background while I've been working or cleaning like the kitchen after breakfast or like just while doing something else. I've been having Futurama play in the background,
you
and
gotta love it.
which I love. But now I think the only place I can get it is Hulu, which has ads, and I'm so used to being able to skip ads on YouTube, not being able to skip ads on Hulu is kind of aggravating. Like I'll out of instinct, my finger will go up to the corner of my iPad screen to hit skip ad, and there's no button there, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm on Hulu. It's like,
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So wait here, let me tell you one of like the get hype like holy shit moments of Cobra Kai season 3 because it's not gonna hit you because you've never seen Karate Kid 2, right?
nope, I haven't seen two, haven't seen
James,
three.
have you seen Karate Kid 2?
I have seen this the first one.
Karate Kid.
Just Karate Kid.
Okay.
Classic. Wax on, wax off.
So right. So in Karate Kid 2, the story is there's some kind of family emergency and Miyagi needs to go to Japan and Daniel decides to go with him. So they go to Okinawa and they go to this village where um, the uh, it's like Mr. Miyagi's lost love that he meets with. They fall back in love, and then her niece falls in love with Daniel, and they kind of have this great kind of back and forth, this relationship, whatever. Uh, there's a long story start with Miyagi's brother and his nephew, and a fight to the death with Dan. Whatever. There's like a different weird dynamic there, but at a certain point, there's a typhoon. They rescue everyone in the town. There's one girl left on a tower, and Daniel risks his life to go save this little girl in a typhoon and rescues her, or whatever. And then that's kind of like towards the end of the movie. So now in Cobra Kai, Daniel owns a car dealership, and so he through the events of Cobra Kai, the dealership gets really bad PR because Daniel is causing with his dojo is causing uh, some karate related gang shenanigans. um,
Of course. Why? What else?
in the town. Well, because it's the thing of like Daniel's wife is sort of like the voice of reason in the show, right? And sort of the so there's a great scene where Johnny and uh there's a great scene where Johnny and Daniel are like kind of talking shit to each other, and there's another character I won't spoil, but Amanda, who's Daniel's wife, walks in and says, "Oh, have they told you about their warring karate dojos yet?" And it's the kind of thing of like, they're training students and all these students go to school together and don't like each other. And so what does that you're teaching these kids how to fight, right? Like what is this going to cause? And so that's part of the moral part of the show. But anyway, uh so the Toyota, who's obviously Toyota pulls its sponsorship from Daniel's uh car dealership because obviously they can't be associated with uh, a family car dealership that is
He's
causing
causing like gang fights in the hallways
gang
of the school.
violence, right? And so they pull the dealership, and so Daniel is kind of in a loss for what to do, and so he decides to fly to Okinawa to reconnect with Mr. Miyagi's roots and sort of get guidance and hopefully clear his head, right? And so of course he runs into the girl that he fell in love with in Japan. They reconnect. He reconnects with the nephew that tried to kill him, and he teaches him new ways of Miyagi Dojo, whatever. Um, One of the main points in that episode too is the girl he fell in love with. Of course, his aunt was in love with Miyagi, and so they would send letters back and forth. So she has all of Miyagi's old letters
Oh.
that he reads to Daniel, like these love letters, and of course they have a lot of wisdom in them. And so through reading that, Daniel kind of gets his head clear and understands what he needs to do to lead his students and like what to do with his life and stuff like that. And so it's the way of having Miyagi in the show without having Pat
Without
Morita
having
around. Or
Miyagi
like
in the
right,
show, yeah.
right. So it's a great moment. At the end of the episode, uh, he's going to Yukio, who's the girl. He's going to say bye and say thank you, and she has another woman with her. And Daniel goes, "Oh, who's this?" And she goes, "It's a friend of ours." And the woman stands up and goes, uh, "It's okay if you don't remember. I was a child and it was a typhoon." And so it's the girl that he saved, right?
Aw.
And it's the same actress. It's the
Oh
little girl
wow.
grown up, right?
I
So
love when they can do that. When it's just
right,
like real life aging.
right. And so he goes, "Wow, your English is perfect, and like it's good to see you. And how could I forget? And how are you doing?" And she goes, "Oh, I work in international sales, so perfect English comes in handy." And he goes, "That's awesome. Who do you work for?" And she goes, "Toyota." She goes, "I'm the vice president of international sales for Toyota International."
Oh god.
And he goes, "Wow, can I buy you a drink?" And she goes, but I would hope so because I'm about to save your business, and the episode ends,
Nice.
right? And it's stuff like that, right? Where you go, fuck, they care. It's so good.
Okay, I'll have to get that a watch. Uh,
It's so good.
but anyway, there's two things I know I wanted to go over before we haven't even hit our main topics yet.
I mean, to be fair, there's very light on the main topics.
Yeah, the main topics are literally I sent it to Chris yesterday going like, there's like three things. So first off, this will be something I think you'll be very interested in. What my sister got me for Christmas.
Yes.
She got me an Obi-Wan Kenobi costume.
Oh, because you look like the Obi.
Yeah, it's not the best, but she was able to get it like custom sized, and there are things with it like the pants are bad. Like I'm gonna have to get something else. The belt they have is bad, so I'll have to like whenever I can get one either at Galaxy's Edge in the future
You
when
can buy
things
them online
reopen.
now.
The not in the adult size. So
Oh,
it's
really?
kind
You
of
don't
like
have the
yeah,
kids one?
I they could get the kid one that's like the Obi-Wan belt, but not the adult one. So like I'll need to get the belt. The tunic is kind of clunky but functional. But because I have bits of it where I'm like, okay, this is like pieces that need to kind of be reassembled. I think my long wanted General Kenobi from Clone Wars costume is like more plausible now because I could take pieces from this costume to build out the, you know, as like a basis to put the armor on top of. So that's something that I know because you've been working on some of your own cosplay stuff with Star Wars. That we need to talk about, not on the show, but we need to at some point talk about how to get that armor made because I know you have some of the equipment I would need to do it. So,
Yeah, let's do it.
yeah. So no, that was something really exciting that I got. The other thing that we can talk
That's
on really,
awesome.
yeah, she gave it to like she dropped it off. Like it arrived late because she ordered it from the place and they apparently mailed it to the wrong address. So they had to resend it. So I didn't get it till after Christmas, which was fine. I mean, this last year was so bizarre that it wasn't like there was a Christmas day that my family had to worry about anyway. I tried it on. Like, there's, again, it's like the belt and the pants are weird. The tunic itself, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it, but like the piece that goes on top over like the top layer of it is like two individual pieces that aren't actually attached at the shoulder or to the tunic at all. So you like have to like do a weird wrap, but I think it's where because I was looking at like the ones you could get at Galaxy's Edge after I got this from her just to see how they function different, and I was like, where this would be great is if when making like the Clone Wars era Obi-Wan costume, is those pieces can be like run through like the shoulder piece. And so it's actually probably a good thing that they aren't attached to the tunic itself because now I actually have a means of like attaching it to another piece so it works more as one unit rather than trying to like figure out some other thing. So it's just I think it's going to be good for that purpose. Also but the dark, hooded cloak is perfect.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's definitely something I'm gonna have to be playing with, especially because Celebration, since it got canceled, I can go to Celebration whenever it reopens, and I can have a costume. The other thing is something I know we touched about briefly is the fact that I've been needing a new iPhone, and I actually now have an iPhone 12 mini. So I loved my SE. Like, honestly, I still think that the iPhone 5S, iPhone SE design was like honestly one of the best designs Apple made because they were just they fit well in the hand. They were very sturdy. It was, and I've used this example before, and I saw it used also online where it's like the equivalent of the Nokia brick for iPhones, where you could throw that thing around, it could get tossed around, it could get abused, and it just will like take forever to break. This one, I don't know if it's going to be as sturdy. It does feel nice in my hand, and honestly, I wouldn't want a bigger phone. Like the mini to me is big enough. Like I know, like I'll just pull it out so people will see it on camera. But like a 10R, I want to say is like to here. I know you can't see it, Chris, but it just. I remember when my parents got their 10R, and so did Caitlin. Just feeling how big it was, I just was like, this is too big. I would never want to use this phone. And the 12 mini is just like perfect. I would even be okay if it was a little smaller, but I definitely wouldn't want one any bigger. I'm disappointed to hear rumors going around that Apple's disappointed with how the mini is selling, but I hope it's selling good enough that they keep this size around because it is perfect for me. Because the one downside of the SC and one of the big reasons I wanted to upgrade was actually our Disneyland trip. Because you could look at the difference in the photos that you took and the photos I took. And the SC photos, they weren't bad, but the color, the just essentially the dynamic range, like just everything on the
Yeah.
photos we got from the iPhone 11 from your phone just were that much more vibrant and interesting. And because they were able to portray more color and pull out more from the shadows, whereas mine looked like a point and shoot photo, like that
Right.
you would have taken like 2006. Admittedly, high resolution, but I think that's the big difference between the iPhone of the generation I had to the iPhones now is they've gone from being a point and shoot to just really good cameras. And I knew the
Right.
next time I went to Disneyland, I wanted or went on a trip or did anything, I realized I'm like, oh, this is one of the reasons I don't take a lot of photos. It's not that the camera's bad. It's just like, it's not great. Whereas I feel like I could achieve, something where I actually like looking at the photo a bit more with the newer phone. So I'm actually, as much as I'm not in a position to take a lot of photos with it right now, I'm looking forward to when I can.
No, definitely. Speaking of photos, and
Hmm.
kind of getting off topic and off track, did you see some of the footage from the football game last night?
No, you are talking sports, and you have to
Oh
remember.
my! So they were Fox Sports was experimenting with new camera tech uh on the sideline, and so they're using a Sony Alpha A7R mirrorless camera with like full field of depth of field lenses and like DJI gimbal mounts and like all kinds of stuff. Just to get like some sideline shots and other things. It literally looks like a video game, how clear and how like crisp the image looks and like the depth of field and like I it looks insane. Let me find these clips for you.
Yeah, you send those to me because
Um,
I think what I find really interesting,
Here's
especially
one.
nowadays, is camera technology that people can put in their pocket has become so good that you can get these amazing, this amazing footage from something that would have like a couple decades ago would have required, a tens of thousands of dollars setup and like a full on like DP crew.
Yeah, it's it's pretty intense. Uh, and I'm sure you saw the TikTok from yesterday too, the best edited video I've ever seen. Um,
James, did
that's
you see
also
it?
pretty insane.
The TikTok video? Because I know that was going around. Because I hate to break it to you, I was actually I was impressed by it, but I wasn't like blown away
I
because
Wait,
wasn't
what?
that
What are you
either.
talking about?
there was a TikTok going around. I'll see if I can't find it. It's been in like my feed constantly where it's solid editing, but I've seen editing like that before. So everyone who's like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" Like, yes, a good editor, but
Yeah,
um,
it's not the greatest edit job in general, but I've never seen a TikTok like this. And the
but
thing
my
So
thing
is,
this
is
like,
is
I've
like the
seen
girl like
videos
taking
like
off all the
this.
hats kind of like all in a row.
yeah,
That thing?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. I was always curious how can you just edit on a computer and then upload it to TikTok?
yeah,
Like, okay,
upload to TikTok.
it's
Yeah,
not like old Instagram where you had to kind of do everything in the phone, so you couldn't
yeah.
quite.
And
no,
I think that's one of the reasons why I wasn't as impressed is because having worked in video as long as I have, like I'm just like, oh no, this is good. It's a
yeah, but
solid
I
piece
don't
of
think
editing, but I don't think
so.
anyone's done this on TikTok. I think that's the only real difference.
There's some back and forth of whether or not she used a computer. It looks like she edited it all through the app, which
If
makes it
that's
impressive.
if that is the case, that actually is impressive. Um,
Because there's some argument back and forth, but there's a lot of talk that yeah, this was all done through the TikTok app. She didn't use like Premiere or anything.
I mean, for this sort of thing, I don't think it's that difficult. I mean, in the app, can you sort of trim the edits, or do you have to kind of just like hold the record button for the length of time you want that shot to be?
I think you can trim.
So yeah, it's like I think either way, the more impressive part is just the layout of that and kind of like getting all those things to line up. Like even though you're, it's obviously edited, but just like being able to kind of line yourself up and like change clothes and like sort of
Yeah,
put your
that's
body into
difficult.
exactly the right position on screen.
yeah,
I think
that
that's like way harder, and it doesn't matter how it's edited. It's like that's the effort part.
Yeah, it like if she did that all in camera, what that says is less I would well I'll be impressed about her as an editor. It's literally it's the full package that becomes interesting and impressive there because that's a lot of work and effort and honestly skill as a performer and as a even like just in terms of direction in the sense of blocking that is not going to be done in 5 minutes.
Right.
But yeah, no, this footage is crazy.
The football one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it freaked me out. Because at first I was like, is this Madden? Is this next gen Madden?
Well, like the
No,
first video I
it's not.
see, like I think the first one I actually was like, no, this is video game footage, and I think it's just the compression on YouTube or on.
It's
To me, it's the
because
depth of field.
the shutter angle is very narrow. So like each frame is so crisp. There's no motion blur. That I think that's why it looks video gamey because that's how like like an Xbox can't render motion blur in real time. So like video games kind of have that really like choppy look to it, which I think is that helps.
Yeah, to me, it's the depth of field. Like the clips here, if you're, I don't know if you're scrolling through the thread, Logan, but there's a couple of clips that are like of actual motion, like football in motion, not just Aaron Donald on the sideline, and like
Yeah,
some of
there's
these are
one I'm
insane.
watching where it looks like it's after a touchdown. That one,
Yeah,
it's obviously it's like an actual person, but just the way they're doing depth of field is crazy. And James, you're right. There's definitely something with the shutter speed. Everything is just super crisp to the point where we're not getting as much motion blur
Yeah.
as you would expect. And
I
it's
mean,
just
like those stadiums, they're incredibly well lit for like most camera situations. Like you have to put it like you have to like shooting a football game. It's like you have to like adjust your camera like it's being like you're in the sun because those lights are just so bright and so even that it's hard to get motion blur without having an ND filter. I mean, I'm sure those DJI things don't have that. Soon, though, they'll all have everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
like
yeah,
about
I
a
thought it
year
was super
ago.
interesting.
Yeah, it's like we got these little DJI. They're kind of, it's sort of like a GoPro, but it's just like the little gimbal that's just kind of built into its own thing. So like the whole camera itself is like the size of a kind of a like a toothbrush, maybe a little bit shorter than that, like kind of like two Sharpies held together. And there's just like you hold it kind of like a little tall, skinny phone, and there's a little itty bitty like 1 inch screen on the top, and then on the top of it, there's just like a little gimbal with the camera built right into it, and it's just like so little, but the quality is really pretty good. For you're just like, oh man, that's just like the tiniest camera I've ever seen, and it's so smooth because it weighs nothing.
Yeah, no, that's just crazy to look at. I keep I keep
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know, me
rewatching those
too.
videos.
I keep staring at it. It's really bad.
What's weird is like the depth of field is so it's sort of like there's in focus, and then beyond that it's like so consistent, which again is what a video game would do. It's just like blur that background layer equally. So like the stands, like the first row of the stands is like as blurry as the last one, which is really weird looking.
Yeah,
God.
it's it's pretty intense. So yeah, I thought you guys would find that interesting. I was
Yeah.
staring at this for hours trying to figure out like what it is.
God, no, that's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
Um,
figured you guys would get a kick out of it as much as I did.
yeah, no, it's just I don't know if I wonder if they'll keep it up because it's kind of jarring because it's so not what we're used to.
Yeah,
It's like the shift from, and one of the reasons why the shift never took as much as like Peter Jackson or wanted it to, like the 48 frame Hobbit, where it's just so not what you're used to seeing that all of a sudden see a movie at a higher frame rate just felt jarring and made everything seem more fake.
right.
Is it just like a guy on the field running around with the camera, or is it like that weird suspension contraption that they
No,
have?
it's the guy with the camera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's why I was wondering that too, and then someone took a picture of the guy holding the setup on his shoulder, and I was like,
Oh,
oh, okay, it's not. Yeah,
that's
it's
crazy.
a dude with the camera.
Yeah, it's like that
But
shot
yeah,
of the guy kind of like warming up. That's that's the most video gamey looking
Yeah,
thing.
no, I legit was like, no, this looks. It's just the way it's shot, and I think the compression of Twitter. I honestly was like, this is video game footage.
Well, it's like, and the lighting is so flat,
even.
which is kind of
Yeah,
again, it looks like burned in cloth texture on like a flat model.
Yeah, it does. It looks like video game footage, which is why I went and found the other videos because I'm like, okay, I need to see this with like something that doesn't look like a video game, just so it's because you could have told me that that was actually like some AR trickery they had done in camera to like have like a Madden model next to like live person, and I would have believed that because of just how
yeah.
it looked. Damn, what we can do with the cameras these days is crazy. Um, but let's move on. Let's actually go to our short topic list. uh, so Chris, did you watch Wonder Woman?
Yes, I didn't like it.
You didn't like it?
No.
Um, I need to get back on my 50 words reviews thing and write one, but I think my review is an exact quote from the movie. What the shit, Diana?
Yeah.
The one good line in the movie.
Yeah, I don't like it.
It
I
was
think
just
that's pretty much it. I
weird.
think I didn't like pretty much any part of it. Um, yeah, it's not great.
I
I
found it
wasn't.
weird just the entire time I was watching.
Yeah, the story's not great. The storytelling is pretty jarring. The way that they cut back and forth between stuff. Uh, I Again, like a lot of the action sequences fall flat to me,
Yeah.
Like,
In fact, the thing that I find interesting is the best sequences, and admittedly, people have taken a lot of criticism to them from like the plot side of things.
right.
But I think the flying sequences were the best sequences in the movie in terms of just you could tell those were what Patty Jenkins really wanted to do. That she
Sure.
really wanted those sequences. And that actually, as a side note, was one of the reasons I'm like, okay, I can totally tell in these sequences why she would want to do like Rogue Squadron. Like
Sure.
she hasn't been able to tell a story that's all about flight yet. And oh, hey, now she gets one. But yeah, the entire time I watched that movie, I was just like, this is weird. And then even further with like all of the issues around the DC expanded universe, it's just like, if you go back a couple movies, there was this idea that she kind of just disappeared after World War One. It's just like, but she didn't. Like, you're telling
Yeah.
me that there's like no like documentation anywhere of like what happened in this movie. It's just so it's just like not only is it falling flat and going weird, it's just like DC is just like, what is continuity? It is this concept we do not understand and therefore will ignore.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's a pretty bad movie overall. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
because I personally don't believe that 6 to 7 billion people will all recant their wish.
yeah.
It's like, uh,
But yeah, whatever.
yeah, it's like I don't have like I want it because I think where Wonder Woman is gonna be like a bigger impact is entirely in its nature of release, which we've talked about to death already, than the actual like film itself. I've seen a couple places talk about it in conjunction with Hamilton, as in like examples of film releases in 2020. And I'm like, man, if I'm Warner Brothers, I'm upset that I'm in categorized the same thing as Hamilton, not because Hamilton is bad, but because
The
Hamilton
budget,
is like a low budget
right?
film. Disney did spend a lot of money on it, but I think it was Disney. I think Disney's strategy here was they may or may not recover their money in box office, but it would be such a good add to Disney Plus. Admittedly, when they first bought it, they were probably thinking Disney Plus in like 2022 rather than 2020. That to them it just seemed like a steal. This is a film that was in Warner Brothers books supposed to be like $8 billion box office gross. So the fact that it is being compared to Hamilton is like not the comparison I would want made
Yeah.
because it totally just diminishes that brand.
I mean, to be completely honest, though, having now seen this movie and having seen the backlash for this movie, I don't know if they would have did that well. It would have obviously did better than it did on streaming, but like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I don't know how well this would have did. It would have underperformed in theaters.
I think what hurt this film too is the backlash and criticism of this film came out incredibly quickly and was incredibly widespread. And part of that was the fact that everybody was able to watch it day one on streaming,
Yeah.
which meant that unlike a theater release where people may have bought tickets in advance, or in my cases, oftentimes when I go to see a movie like this, I am often trying to avoid any conversation about it until I see it. And that might mean might not see it for a few days. In this case, it was like, no, the conversation was going to just start right away because there was literally no barrier to entry other than, do you have HBO Max? Yes or no?
Right.
And yeah, like I remember seeing, because Warner Brothers announced that they were going to do, I think, is it 6 DC films a year starting in 2022?
Yeah. That's not
You
good.
know that press release was written with the hope and goal that instead of it being like an afterthought that they kind of put out late in the day. They wanted to be like, look how awesome Wonder Woman did, how everyone loves Wonder Woman, and we're gonna give you guys 6 films a year. And it's just now it's just like, oh yeah, guys, we're also doing 6 films a year. Please say subscribe to HBO Max. Okay, thanks, bye.
Yeah.
It just was like, oof, like all of the wind went out of their sails. It's just like,
Yeah,
and I think what's
the only saving grace here is the Batman films that they're doing. Otherwise, who knows?
yeah, but it's also not part of their greater universe. It's like DC's
Yeah.
best films are the ones that aren't part of their big continuity.
Yeah.
Which, and what's really, I was not a big fan of the first Wonder Woman film, but I remember saying at the time, and I still think I'm right. Whereas, I think DC Universe would have been better off if that had been the first film
Yeah.
they
If
had
that was its
released.
Iron Man.
Yeah, if that was its Iron Man, I feel like they would have had a more solid foundation. As much as I did not like a lot of that film.
Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of it either. So like this
Yeah.
one was just a million times worse.
Yeah, this one just
So
was
then-
like took all of like the what little redeemable aspects I found in the first one, and I'm just like, this is just like not it. I would say, if anything, there's the two things are, first off, yes, Gal Gadot, for having a bad script, she looks and does the part justice.
Yeah,
She
I
had a
love
bad
her as a
story.
character, and I love her as an actress, and I love her as in that character role. I just
Chris
do not
Pine,
like this.
yeah, this movie just did not serve anyone. Chris Pine stole every scene he was in because he's Chris Pine. It made me actually sit there and go, he has a relationship with Patty Jenkins. Can we get Chris Pine in Star Wars?
That's the rumor that he wants in.
I would totally be down for that. Like, I'd love to have Chris Pine in Star Wars. Like, he's one of those actors who he's just good. He's just a solid actor who, at some point in time, I feel I don't think he's hit like the Leo DiCaprio where everyone's like, why hasn't this guy got an Oscar yet? But it's just like, I think it's just a matter of time for this guy. And Pedro Pascal, honestly, he hammed it up, but he's also Pedro Pascal, which meant that he's kind of just like,
Well, the character's meant to be
yeah,
hammed up a little.
but he's hammed up a little, but he's also, Pedro Pascal is a charismatic actor to where I feel like it actually worked because of he was playing the role. I don't know how many other actors could have delivered that same role and actually made it as engaging, as weird. And again, you had 3 actors who, if they had been in a different movie, would have delivered an amazing movie. But we got Wonder Woman 84 instead.
Right.
So, yeah, it just was. Again, I think, honestly, the rest of the industry might be going, whoo! Because if Wonder Woman was a big success, I think there'd be more pressure for more releases on like digital streaming services. Where as much as I think that's the trend and where a lot of things is headed, because of just how poorly it was received, I feel like a lot of the push kind of got quieted down. Because it's not like this is the way of the future. So much as, man, that movie's just not great.
Yeah, the movie's not good.
Sorry, Warner Brothers, you're 0 for. I don't even know how many you have anymore. I don't, honestly. You're just 0 for question mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a great place to be. Well, let's move on, shall we? Just Star
Sure.
Wars, our perennial topic. The topic that is never going to die, except for like the 3 episodes where we don't have it because nothing's happening. First off, rumors. I know you wanted to talk about this. Robert
Yes.
Downey Jr. as Thrawn. What is your take on this, Chris?
I'm in. I'm so in.
I personally would be okay with it, but why can't we just paint Lars Mikkelsen blue?
Because Robert Downey Jr. would be awesome.
It's not. I, he's a fantastic actor. Like, honest God, if you haven't seen Chaplin, watch Chaplin, and I think that's a great example of like Robert Downey Jr. as like a solid character actor. My concern would be not that he can't do it justice, it's that I wonder if it is a casting choice that's more out of Robert Downey Jr. is a big name we can attach to it rather than is that the best for the role. But again, I think he would do a good job of it because again, is a fantastic actor, and anyone who only knows him as Iron Man doesn't know his talent.
Right. Yeah, I think he's a great actor. I think uh the thing the thing with Downey that I think pays a lot, like is gonna pay off with Thrawn if he does it, is like his natural charisma. Because Thrawn, as much as Thrawn is like the conniving, cunning kind of like,
He
like
could
he's
become
the
he can be portrayed very flat if not handled correctly.
right. Like I think the only other person that comes to mind where I think about them that can like the perfect person to me is Cumberbatch.
Here we go. Here's an example of why it can be a concern. Anya Taylor-Joy in Queen's Gambit does a fantastic job of sitting there but portraying what's like going on in the head of the character. She doesn't have to move much or do much, but you understand the character and what she's going through because of Anya Taylor-Joy's performance.
Right.
If we don't get a similar performance by the person who handles Thrawn, it's going to come across as a very flat, uninspired villain. Because Thrawn
but
is
again, like
very controlled.
that's why you need someone that like has the subtlety, but also has like the natural charisma where you're just like, I like watching this person.
Yeah.
And like, yes, this line or this scene is pretty boring, but like I can tell there's more going on here, or I like it just because it's him.
Because the thing,
And like, because
you
again,
need
like that's where you get into the thing where it's like Cumberbatch has that, Downey has that. Um, there's just certain people where you're like, oh, I like watching them on screen, and like even though they're evil or they're kind of flat or they're kind of boring, or like the dialogue's not really here. Like here we
oh,
go.
here's like another example. We just talked about Chris Pine. He's also one of those actors who is very good at just being charismatic and captivating on screen.
Right.
And it doesn't have to do much to grab your attention as a viewer. And so
And I think that again, that goes to the thing of Thrawn, where it's like, whatever scene he's in, when he's on the screen, he's what you're paying attention to.
Mm-hmm.
And like having an actor with that kind of gravitas is a big deal for a character like that.
That's a fair point that I honestly hadn't given as much thought to. And that is something that Robert Downey Jr. could deliver. I'll agree with that. So I'm hopefully that's something they're
And
thinking about in casting.
we've seen him do kind of cold and calculating with like Sherlock Holmes and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. That just Thrawn doesn't quit.
No.
But if he appears, it sounds like if Thrawn appears, it's probably going to be in the Ahsoka series, which means he's in the hands of Filoni again. So I'm not concerned about the writing of Thrawn. But yeah, was this, and this is the thing, because I saw this like getting thrown around as like fan, like hype, not necessarily actual like theory, rumor, or casting. Like, so I never looked too deep into it. Is this like an actual cast rumor, or is this just like people going, this would be a good casting?
No, there's a couple of sources that are saying like, yeah, this is Disney's #1 choice here.
Okay.
Again, we don't know how real that is, obviously, but there's a couple of sources, like well-known sources, that are bringing it up of like, hey, this is a thing. This is something they're looking into.
Okay.
This is why I want to bring it up, because I was like, dude, this is like picking up steam, and I was like, I'm actually kind of down for this.
Yeah, because
And it does too if for Disney, for people like my dad, right? For people that don't really have a connection to Ahsoka, bringing in a person like Downey and having them play off of Rosario Dawson is like a big draw for a show.
true. Like, because people like you and me are sold on everything already. They don't need
Right.
to sell it on us. But adding someone like Robert Downey Jr. to the cast could be the thing
Because
that hooks them.
when you think about all the shows coming out, Ahsoka for like the casual Star Wars fan, Ahsoka is the hardest sell,
Hmm.
right? In terms of all the shows that are coming out. The Obi-Wan show is easy to sell. Even the Cassian Andor show is easy to sell because it's Rogue One and like people
Because it's
Rogue
Rogue
One.
One. Rangers of the New Republic is an easier sell because it just is.
It's a Mandalorian spinoff.
Yeah. Well, not just that it's a
Uh,
Mandalorian spinoff. It's that it's it's not necessarily follow this character you've never heard of. The idea of we're going to tell a New Republic story set after Return of the Jedi, I think, is an easier idea for people to get behind because it isn't a pre-established character that they'd never
no,
heard
it's
of.
Cara Dune.
Yeah.
It's Cara Dune.
Is it Cara Dune?
Yeah.
Um,
You know that?
no.
Yeah, it's Cara Dune.
Yeah. I had been actually hoping it was God, what's his name?
Trapper Wolf.
Trapper Wolf was Buddy.
The Asian guy.
Yeah. I would
No,
love to follow him around in a show.
It's Cara Dune. They already confirmed. Like, yeah, it's Cara Dune.
Okay. But yeah, no, there's a lot going on in Star Wars that where I agree Ahsoka is the hardest sell because it's a character who, when she was first introduced, was loathed by the fan base. And I know I've run into this before when I've tried to tell people to no, you should actually sit down and watch some Clone Wars. They still have like the reaction that a lot of people had to Ahsoka from 2008.
Well,
So
on purpose.
yeah,
She's purposely annoying the first
yeah.
10 episodes.
And people don't realize that they wanted her to grow as a character, and that they may have done it. Like I think Filoni's even said a few times that they may have tweaked it a little too far into the annoying space, but like they wanted her to have like a growth and like mature over the course of the series.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just have that strong negative reaction. Like I run into that people like, but Ahsoka, oh my god, she's so annoying. He's just like, watch Clone Wars and she'll become your favorite character. It's just, but and so she's a harder sell. So yeah, adding someone like Robert Downey Jr. could be the thing that makes people go, oh, I need to actually watch this series, or oh, I'm interested in watching this series.
Right.
Yeah. Next is more just kind of behind the scenes news. The showrunner for Loki is going to be writing Feige's Star Wars movie, and it sounds like they're confirming that his is going to be the next one after Rogue Squadron. So Rogue Squadron is what, 2023 now? So his would be 2025. So I remember watching the trailer for Loki and just being kind of incredibly interested because it just seems really, really weird. So I kind of wonder what they're planning to do with his film. Like his is the one that I think has the most question marks, even more so than like Rian Johnson's like trilogy that is still officially on the books. Because who knows what Feige's going to do. Because the thing with Rian Johnson is it's a trilogy. We don't necessarily need to know anything about it, but you kind of already have an idea that there's going to be a start, a middle, and an end to a story. But he's getting like this one-off. So what's it going to be?
High Republic.
I wonder if he's going to play around in High Republic. I think we're going to see more of it because Acolyte is supposed to take place during the High Republic.
Yeah.
So I guess the thing that got me interested about that is now, as much as I was looking forward to watching Loki, now I'm going to be watching it with this other level of interest going, given how this show has been written, am I excited about this writer being involved in Star Wars? But Feige loves Star Wars. I don't think he'd pick someone who he thought would do like, unless he thought the person would do it justice. So
Yeah.
there's that. Don't really have much more to add on there. And do you?
No, other than all of the Marvel projects look great, and so anyone coming from that uh kind of lineage, I think I would trust, at least so far. Like
Yeah,
WandaVision's looking great, and the
WandaVision
Loki
looks
trailer looks great.
amazing, and we'll be of course talking about that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, next week actually. Oh no, a couple weeks, yeah.
Yeah, because the first one's Friday.
First
And
two are
then
Friday.
first two are Friday. Oh, interesting.
So they start with two parts. From what I've heard, the first two episodes, it's kind of a two-parter. You need the context, which I would assume is like the first one is pure sitcom, and the
Pure
second one is
sitcom.
like a, and the second one is like a what's happening outside of this world that she's built.
All right.
Um,
I'm honestly interested to see how this concept and story plays out.
right. Well, from what I've heard, they really commit to the sitcom thing. So, like
I'm okay
they
with that.
they really commit to like every episode's a sitcom, which is cool.
Again,
Um,
totally okay with that.
yeah, and so we'll see how that goes.
All right. And then finally, Star Wars: The High Republic. Have you read anything yet?
I haven't read anything myself. I've read a lot of synopses and a lot of like general theory stuff and like just kind of informational things. I haven't read a single thing yet. But
All
it
right.
seems really
So
interesting and I want to jump in.
I've read Light of the Jedi. I'm in the
And
middle of the other book that came out Tuesday. I think it's like a call to courage. Let me actually just pull up the books so I get them right. Um,
and
I just opened my cookbook. If you need me to read my recipe, the recipe I used for making biscuits, I have that open. It's a test of courage. Okay. I really, I mean, I was excited for High Republic,
mhm,
and what I find so fascinating about reading it is it has everything you would almost expect from a story about the Jedi, and they're there. So it's very familiar, but and I think this is what's so kind of fascinating is every time we've had a story set in Star Wars, it's always been Jedi versus Sith in some way, shape or form. The
mhm,
Skywalker saga is all about that. Knights of the Old Republic and everything is all about that. This isn't about that. And so we get this very actually like kind of we see the Jedi at their peak, and it's refreshing to read a story about the Jedi that isn't all about like Jedi versus Sith, and to see like what the Jedi were capable of at their peak.
mhm.
And I remember first off, Light of the Jedi, I did not want to put down when I first picked it up because it has, and James, I think I threw a spoiler tag in the things, so let's throw spoilers up. Spoilers for
Also, James, earlier I spoiled Karate Kid too.
yeah,
No, I only had what? It only came out before I was born. I only had my entire life to watch it.
yeah. I know that's how I feel about like movies like The Sixth Sense and other things that have been spoiled for me where I'm like, yeah, I at this point it's my own fault. Um there is a big like there's the idea of the disaster that kind of starts everything off, and the way that book is set up, the first bits of the book are essentially like on a countdown timer where you're seeing all the events leading up to what may have been an even bigger disaster that gets averted through like through the amazing use of the Force by
Hmm.
Jedi. Just like
Right.
absolutely, holy crap, they did it. Like, so it's a very kind of like tension. There's a tension when you're reading it that keeps you turning the pages. And because that tension exists, as much as that tension kind of goes away as the story goes on, you're kind of at that point you've been invested enough in the world that they've been establishing that you're now starting to explore beyond just that immediate moment, and it helps like establish more and more about the Republic in this time period that's about 200 years prior to the Phantom Menace. And the fact that that is the setting they've gone with is one where it isn't like the stereotypical Star Wars story, but we can get a traditional like Jedi story. It's kind of nice to have a story that's all about these Jedi running around, being the guardians of peace and justice that we always wanted to see them being.
Right.
To everything I've read so far, I've either been kept flipping the pages or I'm enjoying it. And that said, I think if you are interested in picking it up, I would say that right now it isn't essential to have read Light of the Jedi to, read A Test of Courage or read the High Republic Marvel run that started. But it definitely sets up the setting and adds a greater level of depth that you won't necessarily pick up unless you read that book. So I wouldn't call it essential reading, but very, very, very highly recommended because it's a very well-written book.
Yeah, I'll have to jump in.
To where I would recommend reading it, especially if, and I know there's a lot of people who are hesitant about the whole setting, but I know you've said this, I've said this, that Star Wars has the capacity to be bigger than it is, and that it is a universe where almost any story can be told within its setting. So you could do like, Underworld. You could have like
Did you see the tweet that was going around? Did you see the tweet that was going around earlier this week? That was something about hear me out. No, it was like hear me out. How we take West Wing, but put it in the Galactic Senate.
Honestly, if I somehow got into a pitch meeting at Lucasfilm, one of the things I would love to pitch would be the idea of what if we told a story that was kind of like that. I think having a story like that set up in the last years of the New Republic with the known endpoint being the use of Starkiller Base on Hosnian Prime. Like everything is leading up to that point, but we're seeing it from like the confines of the Galactic Senate. I think that would be very fascinating to watch.
Right.
But yeah, you could do a West Wing in Star Wars, and you have multiple time periods where you could do it.
It doesn't drastically change depending on your setting.
Yeah. The story will drastically change, but the concept, a political thriller set in Star Wars. Yeah. Easy. Heist movie. Easy. We have one. It's called Solo. Like, Star Wars is a universe where the only real limit is, like, your imagination, with also the understanding that Star Wars is, I would say, very, in its own way, grounded. It is fantastical. It doesn't take, it's, it does, what's the quote from, I think you used this actually and shared it in an episode recently, the Taika Waititi quote, where Star Wars doesn't take itself too seriously, but does take like the emotions of the moment seriously. Like it gives them their just, like, I know I just butchered the quote.
I forget.
But it's
but
that
I get the
kind
point, yeah.
Yeah. Like Star Wars is a very much a reflection of like our world, so it needs to have like, it needs to feel like that could happen even though it's taking place in a galaxy far, far away. And so like it has the your suspension of disbelief has a greater, broader definition of reality in Star Wars, but it's still very much there. And I think that's one of the things that High Republic has set up and done very well is you actually, something I think Old Republic never did as well was this a sense of passage of time and technology. Like they made the stuff kind of look older, but it didn't really feel like it was actually older. In High
Yeah.
Republic, I think there's only one instance of there being like a hologram being used, and it's in like the chancellor's office. So it's like every other time, it's like the comm droid would roll over and would like project the image on like a wall that was designed for like. So basically, your TV was a comm droid that would project like the thing on the wall. So they would be like FaceTiming. It was like that type
Yeah.
of thing. It wasn't a hologram. It was like a FaceTime. And it just like there's I think a better sense of like technological change. There's a bigger sense of the Republic is in a phase of growth, that the Outer Rim is the Wild West. That I think other Star Wars media that has taken place in the past hasn't done as good of a job of doing, is trying to actually think through how would it be different in this timeline? Like, would our reach in the galaxy be as far in this setting as it would be in the Skywalker saga? And High Republic, I think, really actually does realize and acknowledge the fact that there needed to be a notable difference in technology going back even 200 years, to where it does, even while reading it, I'm like, yeah, this does feel a little older than the Skywalker saga. So I think there's a lot to praise in it, and I'm enjoying it. And Claudia
That's awesome. Yeah, I have to
Gray,
jump in.
yeah, Claudia Gray, who I think writes the best Star Wars novels, hers comes out next month. So it's kind of one of those things where I'm right now honestly, one of the things I like too is they are laying the foundations for the larger arc was set in Light of the Jedi, but it doesn't necessarily mean every story has to touch upon that greater arc,
Right.
which I think is kind of refreshing in a way.
Right.
So I think kudos to Lucasfilm Publishing for at least the initial launch of High Republic, because yeah, I was excited and I was ready for it, and everything I was hearing was getting me more excited, but reading it is one, like hearing about it and thinking about it and hoping it was going to be good is one thing. Actually being able to sit down and read it is another. So,
Right.
yeah, thumbs up from me.
Right.
And that does it for me at least on High Republic, unless you have questions you want to throw at me.
No, because I want to jump in. I've read a lot of kind of synopses and plot summaries, so I kind of have an idea, but I do want to jump in and see for myself and see what it is. But it sounds like if you're giving this amount of praise, I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's also like one thing I find interesting to you is what one of the things I've liked about Star Wars, especially in recent years, is this acknowledgement within their creation that we don't have like our understanding of the Force as is presented in the Skywalker saga is not a complete understanding of the Force. We're constantly learning more about it. It's like this, like a line. When you think you understand the Force, it does something that's like, again, I'm butchering the line. When you think you understand the Force, it surprises you. And I felt that a few times reading High Republic stuff, because when you think you understand the Star Wars universe, it's nice to have something surprise you. And for you to realize, oh, I actually don't know as much as I thought, because like one of the things that happens, and I won't spoil it too much. I know you've read the synopsis, you might have an idea. Hyperspace just kind of works in Star Wars. We don't really think too much about it. And this book is a lot of what happens and is set up here is based on the idea that, there is, you know, something about how making hyperspace work, but we don't necessarily have a complete understanding of it. And they didn't have a complete understanding of it. So as much as it's, you know, taken for granted, in the Star Wars galaxy, that they kind of use that as a means to kind of propel the story forward. Is that something that as fans we would have taken for granted is now, you know, turned on its head. So, which is, I think, very clever, because it's the kind of thing you would not have expected. Even me, as a big Star Wars fan, would not have gone, oh, this is what they're going to do. They're going to mess with hyperspace. And it's like, nope, that's what they're going to do. Because it's, of course, it's kind of, when you say it out loud, it seems kind of banal. Like, it's just like wait, that doesn't seem like this big epic thing, but it completely upends how the galaxy would operate if hyperspace isn't running the way you would expect.
Right.
So, or something may upset how it operates. So, yeah. Which I think is,
Very
you know,
cool.
very interesting and a good way to approach it. So, yeah, that is it for
Yeah.
me. High Republic, thumbs up from Logan.
Cool beans. Go check it out.
Yeah. And with that, I think that's a show. So, everyone please like, share, subscribe, stay safe, wear a mask. Again, sedition is for losers. Please don't commit sedition.
Go watch Cobra Kai.
Go watch Cobra Kai. And as always, may the force be with you. Ha ha! There we go. I had to end it on a nerdy point. See you guys in 2 weeks.